Click the links to join channel here over at SubStars. So Joker 2 falling flat at the box office after receiving a bad cinema score. Lady Gaga. Do we need more Lady Gaga? Well, the audience is saying absolutely not. So, and you know, Captain Marvel, the first one did like over $1 billion, and then they come out with the sequel, and it's like a massive bomb. And this is pretty much Hollywood from here on out. You're not gonna see anything you like. There's gonna be it's very rare that something is gonna slip through the cracks from now. They did this with Matrix Part 4, which, you know, with the Matrix, you really only needed to make the first one, but they wanted to cash in. They made it, they said, to send a message to how much they hate the audience, or at least the right-wing audience. Unfortunately, the left wing also doesn't watch the movies, and they do that stuff all the time, where they think they're owning, hey, She-Hulk, we're gonna own the audience, and we're gonna make those chads so upset. So they watch like the first episode or two, and they just don't watch anymore. And you did this with Witcher and Willow and all this crappy Rings of Power. How well is Ring? Oh, it's a massive bomb. All those have massively bombed. Or Acolyte, or all the Star Wars stuff. We're gonna put a black female lesbian in the lead. Great. I mean, is the black female lesbian audience out there and really into like sci-fi fantasy? No. So the audience doesn't exist. Yeah. And like profit? No. So far they have not been doing that. So they make bombs that just nobody's watching, and then they lose money, but they like pat themselves on the back because they sent a message to the Chad Hugo bosses that just don't watch any of this stuff. People are really, really dipping out of Hollywood, and it doesn't have to make sense. One of the theories about why I was actually listening to Gypsy Crusader on GTV last night, and he dresses up as a Joker, and he does a comedy bit, a very politically incorrect comedy, but he's a really funny guy, and he was talking about why the Joker was so bad. And this is kind of theory that's going around, is that they thought that the right wing was attached to the first Joker, and they wanted to figuratively delete the audience, which is possible because the globalist nutjobs who made this movie have no idea what the right wing actually thinks, and that's been studied for a long time. The right wing can empathize and sympathize with left wing point of view, but the left wing can't. They think the right wing is, when you ask them to describe, picture in their mind what the right wing is, they have no idea. Everything's a bizarre straw man. So the problem with that is the Joker was a pretty lightweight meme. It was you get what you deserve picture on the Joker on a talk show with a snubby pointed at the host. That was kind of the big meme to come out of it. And that's it. It's just the Joker wasn't a big deal. Movies can be massively successful, as this one was, and do $1 billion and still not have a lasting impact with the audience like other movies do. The Matrix had a longer life as a meme format, and the red pill concept is something that's stuck around for 20 years, which the guys who made the movie lost their minds over because they're deeply blue-pilled soy boys. So they made Part 4, which nobody saw. So whatever message they had in that movie was wasted, but in their minds, they felt like they owned the Chads. And didn't they replace, what was the black guy's name? Morpheus? They replaced him in the movie for some reason. So while the first Joker just wasn't that big a deal, it's possible that these bleeding pussies who made the movie assumed it was more important than it was. Or a lot of this stuff is just a combination of Hollywood people are deeply insane, and they're in an echo chamber where they hate white people so much that they will deliberately make bad movies, because that's exactly what we've been seeing for decades, and that is not going to change. It's rare that movies slip through the cracks. Oh, hey, a bunch of evil blonde cops are snuggling the Joker for some reason. Weird, Hollywood. Which is, odd, because statistically that's a unicorn event, but in Hollywood it happens every other year. Apparently no other group does that, which is a pretty deep fantasy land to those who are familiar with statistics. But the goal of Hollywood is to spread hatred to European people. It's a form of stochastic terrorism from the lizard people. And oh god, what was that? Was it Ant-Man 3? where there's a scene that's set in San Francisco, I guess, which is a liberal, far toxic liberal city and a far toxic liberal state, at least on the coastal regions. And she's yelling at the cops for something. I could give you some like Antifa lecture about why they had to slaughter people and burn down buildings because they're, I don't know, something. And it's like, it doesn't work because she's yelling at the cops in San Francisco. It's like, well, but the mayor, the governor, the city council, the Anthony Weiner or Scott Weiner or something, that's all far left people. It's like, this is the city of your dreams. And they go, oh, the cops are oppressing us. But this is a left-wing Democrat, far left-wing city in a left-wing state. This is your best thinking got you here. So that kind of didn't work. But the only way it would have worked is if they played up the hypocrisy of that. But of course they didn't, because it's just, fair-skinned cops are bad. Like, yeah, but this is, you elect the city council, the mayor, and the governor. This is what you want. And you probably vote for the sheriffs and the Soros-appointed DAs and whatnot. Anyway, while people did like the first Joker, which did $1 billion on a $50 million budget, that movie still had the same tired anti-whiteism inherent in Hollywood, where black is good and blonde is bad. But people have been so brainwashed to accept it that it's almost invisible. It's like Stockholm syndrome, until you point it out and tell them to list positive and negative characters and then describe them. And then you'll never unsee it. You never unsee the actual race. What was that guy? A guy who drove around in like the hate van or something. He said, you'll never, George Lincoln Rockwell, he said, you'll never forget it. What they should have done is start the transition from, that's probably a hot word for YouTube, from gritty real character to superhero character, because those are two different types of characters, two different types of movies, assuming that this character is actually the Joker and not the guy in the asylum who stabbed him. What do you call it? Like reveal or spoiler warnings or something? Which makes them, I mean, you're not going to see the movie anyways, as well you shouldn't. Even like Go Sail the High Seas is not worth it, which makes the movie pointless, which it is. The character has to transition to the comic book absurd version and start his life as a, master criminal, mastermind of crime, because he exists in the future with all the other characters, because Batman's been around for a long time. So they deleted him. So who is Batman fighting the whole time? The real Joker? Then why would you make the stupid movie? Because you're woke Hollywood and you rewarded the audience who gave you $1 billion for the first movie and paid them back by killing the character and making it woke. Because that's how little you think of the audience. And like I said, that's Hollywood. Because the lead actor and the directors are just, they're on a different level of woke. They're so deep into this. And like I said before, you're going to see Hollywood change in your lifetime. The theater industry, the big screen industry change massively. It's going to shrink in the next few years because you can't continue to lose money at this scale. And so, I mean, the voice off camera just says, why don't you just stop making woke movies? And they look at you and they're dead serious and go, Nazi says what? But, like, just, listen, I'm not even saying make pro-white movies, pro-European movies, though, I mean, it would be cool for a little change of pace. Just treat people equally. And they can't do that. They can't do that. And you think, what do you mean? Don't they treat people equally now? No, that's why I say get a piece of paper and a pencil out and start looking at commercials, streaming movies, protagonists, antagonists. Just draw a line, make 2 columns, and start noticing who's in what column. And once you see it, you'll never forget it, because that's how egregious it is. So you can't have big budget movies, $200 million movies that lose the studio $200 million here, $50 million there. And then the ones like Disney Marvel is a good example of it, because while they've had some mega hits, they've also had a lot of bombs that are eating away at that. That's why when that guy yesterday on a Hollywood Variety or Hollywood Reporter or something was talking about Disney Star Wars, and he was just talking about the gross, but he wasn't talking about the net, because the net is not looking very good for Disney, who they own Star Wars and Indiana Jones, which was another bomb. Probably Indiana Jones probably lost them $300 million. I mean, that's an insane amount of money. I don't know how much they made back on streaming, but at least $200 million a complete just out the window. They just lit that money on fire. And they own Pirates of the Caribbean, which is not doing it. They own some of the best IPs that you should be printing money. And all you have to do is make fun movies that are not preachy about how much you hate Western and Northern European people, because it's so heavy-handed and obvious now that even people who are not really up on the culture wars, they're not going to use the phrase anti-white or anti-Christian or misandrist. They're just going to know these movies are, it's like, more blonde gang members beating up POCs in Chicago and Detroit and St. Louis. And then the blonde cops come and they don't believe the POCs, so they beat them up too. And then it's just so absurd when you see this kind of stuff, and you're not going to articulate exactly why it's absurd. You go, this just doesn't feel right. That it's like a blonde meth gang in Detroit, and the kingpin and the crime bosses are all blonde guys, or South African diamond smugglers, or German people who commit terrible acts at a large scale, Malam and Say type of stuff. Oh, hey, a Russian, a blonde-haired, blue-eyed Russian guy who smuggles girls into Ukraine or something. Yeah, that's this. The thing with Hollywood is you're seeing the statistical improbability. Like the struggle snuggle scene is actually it'd be an interesting video to do an analysis. You couldn't do it on YouTube because there's too many hot words, but you break it down and you go, well, like in the last decade, have there been like a group of people of European descent who did that committed a battery against someone like in the past decade? Like, how much of a unicorn event are we talking about? And you start looking at the stats, and it's like, oh, it didn't happen in the last decade. What does happen? Oh, never mind. Yeah, so you see the statistical improbability, but it comes up every single time. You're like, you just subconsciously know that the movies just don't land with people. And you're seeing that in pretty much everything that's coming out of Hollywood. And their problem is they painted themselves into a corner with woke, and it's a voluntary situation. They don't want to make movies that treat people equally. They'd rather go bankrupt than than turn this around, because like the bankruptcy of the studio doesn't affect them personally as much as it affects them to an extent that they're willing to risk, because the ones at the top are independently wealthy. And they think that they're going to go off to another studio. It's like, well, eventually you're going to run out of studios. But the thing is, the people at the top of the studios, the Igers and the who's the guy who runs Warner Brothers? Not Zelensky, but something like that. They just don't care. Like, this is what they're on board with. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next episode.